Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, like Allah says, شَهْرَ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنُ هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. That Allah has sent down the Quran to guide humanity. Right. By guiding humanity, Allah has taught us to read salah. Allah teaches us what to wear, what to eat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided our character, our behavior. So the Quran is full of things that tell us what to do, what not to do. But one of the fundamental purposes of the Quran is, I might put it this way, in a modern term, conflict resolution. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. From Surah Baqarah verse 213. كان الناس أمة واحدة. All of human beings, they were one nation before. أمة واحدة. They were one nation or one community. فبعث الله النبيين مبشرين ومنذرين. Allah raised up prophets to warn human beings and to give good news to them. وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ. And Allah sent down these prophets with kitabs بِالْحَقِّ, in truth. لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِي مَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. لِيَحْكُمْ, to judge between people in matters wherein they differed. وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ فِيهِ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوهُ. These differences only came through envy and through jealousy and hatred. And I think some weeks or months ago I did speak about how our whole disunity can be singled out by this thing of enmity, hatred and jealousy. But I'm not going to go into that, what causes the disunity, but rather the book itself is supposed to be used, the Quran, to resolve our differences. Another verse, Surah 4, verse 105, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna anzalna ilayka al-kitab. Indeed we have sent down to you the book, bil-haq, in truth, litahkum, that you may judge, bayna an-nasi bima araka Allah, that you may judge between men as guided by Allah, so be not used as an advocate by those who betray their trust. Now, unfortunately we don't have enough time to focus on uniting the ummah and its differences, but I just wanted today, just in this few short time, make an important point here, that our differences must be resolved by the... I'm waiting. Okay, you guys are fasting, I'll tell you it's Quran. I'm just trying to add a point here. We have differences in this world. Allah sent messengers from the beginning of time, because human beings are all different. Some are very harsh, some are very soft, some are very intellectual, some are very emotional. And obviously what will happen? You're going to have differences amongst human beings. And this will create conflicts. And for these conflicts, there has to be a way to resolve them. And to resolve them, you need some sort of criterion. You need to say, okay, right, this guy told me A, B, C, D, and this one said C, F, G, H. So somebody has to sit and listen to this story. If you look at the Prophet ﷺ's life, he was putting out so many fires. People were having differences all the time. But part of creating a great community is to solve people's differences. Husband and wife come having a fight, you have to solve the difference. There's so many differences, and these differences have to be resolved in order to create a successful society. And Allah sent revelation to ensure that we have a standard by which to resolve all our differences. لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِمَا أَرَاكَ اللَّهُ. Now I said, just to give an example of how important it is to use the Quran to resolve our differences, I decided to take a simple example from the Quran. And there's not going to be a topic of divorce, okay? But I want to touch on divorce. I want to tell you things about divorce that are mentioned in the Quran that I feel totally amazed. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us, we have read the Quran in our language many times, but I find it amazing that so few Muslims know what the Quran says about divorce. It's totally amazing. Why? Divorce has been dealt with in depth in the Quran. Why? Like we said, Allah sent revelation to what? One of the main reasons is to resolve differences. When we resolve differences, we have great societies. Am I right? Otherwise we can have what we're having now. We're seeing what's happening in our own country, in Syria and so many countries, so much of conflicts. And we have to resolve these through the Quran, right? But I just want to start on divorce to say in our own societies, we don't know how to resolve a difference between a husband and a wife. We don't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about how to resolve the difference between a husband and a wife. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so I just want to show the point that we are so, how can I put it, we're not familiar enough with the Quran to be able to use the Quran to solve our differences. And I'm going to use the divorce as a simple example to do that. So if we look at a husband and a wife now, we have a husband and a wife, they get married and they have a bit of a difference. They have an argument. What's the first step? What the first step to get us now going to say, okay, husband and wife, obviously, naturally what would happen? The husband and wife would try and resolve their own issue, and then what happens after that? Okay, I'm just going to go to a few verses. I'm just going to put you in, I'm putting you in a picture, okay? This is not a talk about divorce. In chapter 4, verse 35. If you fear a breach between them, between the husband and the wife, appoint two arbiters, one from his family and the other from hers. If they wish for peace, Allah will cause the reconciliation, for Allah is full of knowledge and is going to do all things. So, when there's a difference between husband and wife, they will try and resolve it themselves. If they can't, what do you do? I mean, it's from the Quran. I'm not reading a science book or philosophy book. This is verse from the Quran. It's a very simple, clear verse. The Quran is made up of clear verses that will solve our differences. Okay, so we've got it. Can't resolve the problem. I'll call my auntie, you call your uncle, and we'll sit together and try and resolve the matter. What happens if the problem persists and comes to a stage where now things can't carry on? We'll go to a few other verses. Divorced women shall wait concerning themselves for 3 monthly periods, nor is it lawful for them to hide what Allah has created in their wombs if they have faith in Allah and the last day, and their husbands have the better right to take them back in that period if they wish for reconciliation. And women shall have rights similar to the rights against them according to what is equitable, but men have a degree of advantage over them, and Allah is exalted in power. Women must wait 3 monthly periods. Okay, you don't say I'm divorcing my wife and you say get out, go to your mother's house. It's wrong. It's totally unacceptable. You can't even say, hey, I'm going to my mother's house, you can stay here, it's your house, I don't ever see you again. What I'm just trying to make the point is that, do you know the Quran? That can you use the Quran to resolve differences in your own family? So number one, they'll try and sort it out themselves. Number two, get a family member from each side to try and sit and resolve this. And then number three, we go into divorce. Then what will happen? We go into the divorce itself. What happens is that you've got to stay together for those few months, separate the beds, but stay together under the same roof. I'd like to read you a couple of verses. Maybe we should have like how we have for kids reading time. I think for all Muslims there should be Quran reading time. Maybe this masjid can have. We need to familiarize with the Quran. I might be making an issue about this. It's because I've never heard of a divorce done, or never heard of a divorce that was done the way the Quran prescribed it. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of something like that. And that just proves our negligence of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That just proves that how we're going to ever resolve other conflicts if these verses are clear, are simple. Other things are, maybe other differences are, but more difficult to see who's right and who's wrong. It might be grey areas. But the divorce, yes, the system, we're not saying that the system will fix the divorce, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed divorce, but follow the process that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you. I'd just like to read you some of these verses, which, listen carefully. And tell me if you've heard of a divorce where this happens or this is a style. And if you do, please tell us straight away, we would like to record it. O Prophet, when you divorce women, divorce them at their prescribed periods, and count accurately their prescribed periods, and fear Allah your Lord, and turn them not out of their houses, nor shall they themselves leave, except in the case they are guilty of some open lewdness for fahsha. if it's something to do with adultery and some crazy, shameful, indecent thing that has happened, the rules are different. But listen to this. You shall not kick them out of the house, and they shall not leave. Have you ever heard of a divorce like this? Husband and wife having a problem. What's the first thing that happens? Either the husband is kicking the wife out, or the wife is saying, I'm sick of you, I'm going. Sometimes they get back together, sometimes Allah is saying here, listen, and fear Allah your Lord, and turn them not out of their houses. لا تخرجوهن من بيوتهن ولا يخرجن إلا أن يأتين. And they will not leave on their own accord, except in the case they are guilty of some open lewdness. Those are the limits set by Allah, and any who transgress the limits of Allah does very, very wrong himself. Thou knowest not if perchance Allah will bring about thereafter some new situation. That period of waiting of iddat for divorce. We know of iddat for death, but there's an iddat period for divorce. Allah says you don't know what لَعَلَّ اللَّهُ يُحْدِثَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ أَمْرًا. Something might happen. Thus, when they fulfill the term appointed, either take them back. Now, after these months have passed, if you don't follow the process, you can't say, I've completed divorce. Thus, when they fulfill the term appointed, either take them back on equitable terms or part with them on equitable terms, and take for witnesses 2 persons from amongst you, and do it with justice, and establish the evidence as before Allah. Such is the admonition given to him who believes in Allah in the last day. As for those who fear Allah, He ever prepares a way out, and He provides for him from sources he could never have imagined. I'm just going to skip a few verses. Verse 6. This I'm reading from Surah. Guess what's the Surah? The Surah name is Talaq, divorce. These are the verses on Talaq. Allah, sometimes I wonder, there's many things in Islam that I say, Allah, how come this is not clearer, How come we're arguing about this and this is not clear? But there's a whole Surah on divorce. Why? It's a difference in the community, and let me tell you something. I decided before I read that verse, I'm going to show you a picture, because I took out this little map of the world, and as we can see in the Western culture, dark maroon, greater than 60% divorce rate. Europe, matching them, and we've got 40 to 49% on the oranges, and we come to the yellows, 10 to 20% divorce rate. Generally, 30% is an average in the world today, divorce rate. Now, if there is such a high divorce rate, you're going to have problem with youth, problem with upbringings, incorrect upbringings. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has devised a way and has placed in this Quran, لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِمَا أَرَاكَ اللَّهُ. I've just taken the one example of divorce, that here's the way you should handle this situation, this difference. Follow this process. Doesn't mean there won't be divorce. No, there will be divorce. The time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was divorce. The Prophet ﷺ himself, when he married Zayd to Zainab, and he wanted that marriage to work, he made the nikah himself. Muhammad ﷺ made that nikah. Imagine the Prophet made that nikah. What happened to the nikah? It broke. He later married Zainab. Okay, it's natural, but the process is important. Why? Because Allah has commanded it so. Verse 6 of Surah Talaq. Again, just listen to the style that should be in divorce based on the Quran, and look at it, what's happening in our societies. Let the women live in iddat in the same manner, style as you live, according to your means. Annoy them not so as to restrict them. And if they carry life in their wombs, then spend your substance on them until they deliver their burden. And if they suckle your offspring, give them their recompense. And take mutual counsel together, according to what is just and reasonable. And if you find yourselves in difficulties, let another woman suckle the child on the father's behalf, that the man of his means spend according to his means. I'm not going to go, like I said, I'm not here to speak about divorce, but I'm just highlighting some of the verses of divorce, the process, getting people involved, the waiting period, there should be, when in a divorce, you're staying with your wife and now you're a divorcer, you've got to stay together, and there should be equitability, there should be kindness in that house. You're supposed to look after them. You're not allowed to annoy your spouses during that time. It's a break. you're taking a break from each other. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this 1400 years ago. And why I chose this as an example is because we are not seeing people turning to the Quran to find the differences and the process of resolving our differences. Inheritance is another topic that one can look at. We are finding so many people so many families, we know ourselves, of families, when the father dies or something and there's a fight over inheritance. How you find such warm and lovely families, people that love each other that you knew years ago, today are fighting amongst each other, not talking to each other. Why? Because it's an argument of inheritance. Yet if you go to the Quran, yusikumullah fi awladikum, the verses are so much, the inheritance is dealt with such detail. Such detail. You go to the Quran and you find the verses on inheritance. The son gets twice the girls and the daughters, and if there's mother and father, how much you get, the sisters and the aunts, the uncles. It's all in the Quran. Simple verses. Like I read to you today, I just want to read the verses of divorce to you so you know that the Quran is filled of simple things to understand. It's not very complex. You don't need an alim to come and explain you to treat your wife nicely while you're going through the iddat period of divorce. And once we get to that, like I said, it's the Quran. The Quran is only guidance, not only guidance for mankind, but it's the tool from all revelations have come to resolve human differences. Because as human, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we talk of Islam, for example, or any religion, then the most fundamental thing of the deen of Islam is Tawheed. Tawheed, when we talk of Tawheed, is made up of 3 parts. Tawheed means we talk about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah being one and only. Then we talk of the oneness of the nubuwwat, of the messengers being one brotherhood. Then we talk of humanity as being one ummah, ummatan wahidat, as it originally was. And for us to work towards a united ummah, a united human being, not even a united ummah, a united human being, that as Muslims we should do everything in our power to work towards uniting human beings. And to unite human beings, we've got to find ways to deal with conflicts. We've got to find the means to ensure that conflicts are dealt with in a manner that becomes a uniting force. So whether it is divorce, whether it is in the community, I mean, I haven't even touched on all the conflicts we got in the ummah, the different sects we have. I'm just taking divorce as one example. Because if we follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance, and we use the Quran as the fundamental criterion and the tool to resolve the conflicts, and the words in this Quran as the criterion and the standard by which we will resolve conflicts, then inshallah we'll definitely have a much more united, not ummah, only a united world, a much better society to live in, that will have much more control and much more safety for our children and for everyone together, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.